there's always a point that I want to quit, you know, and I have this dialogue with myself that says, well, the kids will still love me if I quit. They will, and my family will still love me. I mean, they'll still be proud of me. It's okay if I quit. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. You learn those life lessons of you're not stuck in this moment or stuck in this mile, and things will change, and having that belief that it will, and I'm not going to give up on myself or give up, right now.
Welcome to Longevity Advantage. Today we have another special guest for you, another expert from the medical field we have with us today, Dr. Melissa Sundermann. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you, Scott. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great. So Melissa is, she's a fellow member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. She's a lifestyle medicine physician out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And part of a big program there. Maybe, Melissa, you can tell us a little bit about IHA and kind of where you fit in and where you see that organization's going, because I think that's part of a big movement and you're at the leading edge of it.
Right. So thank you. So like Scott said, I am a physician practicing in Ann Arbor, Michigan area. I'm part of IHA, Integrated Health Associates, and we are a multi-specialty group. We have close to, I think, 900, maybe to 1,000 providers. So I am primary care internal medicine, but we've got all the specialists. So we serve a population, I think it's about 50,000 people that we have as patients. So we're very large. And what's really exciting is that we are launching, or we have launched, the William J. Folletti Lifestyle Medicine Institute within IHA. It was launched a couple of years ago, and Dr. Bob Brakey, who is chairman of our Lifestyle Medicine Institute, is leading the charge. And Dr. Brakey's is also board certified in lifestyle medicine. We actually have 5 physicians in our group board certified in lifestyle medicine, which is really exciting because we're still a small group, but to have representation in our large multi-specialty group and having a voice and having leadership that's really been behind us. So what we've been working really hard at and getting ready to launch is the IHA Lifestyle Medicine Consult Service. So we're going to launch our pilot in 2 weeks. And what this will serve as is other, right now, primary care physicians who have patients who have chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes, coronary artery disease, obesity, hyperlipidemia, can refer their patients to us to help, teach them about lifestyle medicine, help them to either get their disease under better control and then possibly even reverse their chronic disease. So that's been very exciting for us. And I'm one of the key physicians working on that charge. And we're so excited to roll it out. Once we roll it out to primary care, then we're hoping to open it up to our other specialists that can refer to us as well. So that's where we are with that. And it's been great. It's really been fulfilling. I've been in practice for 23 years, and finding lifestyle medicine is like finding my home. And there's a lot of burnout going on in medicine, probably a lot of fields. And the passion that I have for this has really just been so rewarding to see patients benefiting, patients getting better, empowering patients. And when you can do that for your patients and see them getting better and you're making a difference in their life and vitality, that means the world. And that's truly why I went into medicine, is to really help and heal.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to honor kind of all the physicians in the field maybe for a minute here, and you touched on something I think is really important. And I really, I look at the primary care physicians and the challenge that they have. I don't think people understand what a burden the system has placed on them, which is really, I would argue they've been undertrained relative to what we know, we would have liked to have had them in training. We've burdened them with tremendous administrative responsibilities, kind of all the things that have nothing to do with actually providing better health. And so part of what has happened clearly, and I think I'm seeing 2 things happening in the medical field particularly. on the primary care side is that there's creating a division of those who are just kind of burned out, as you talked about, and fed up, and they're leaving the system and trying to figure out how to do something on their own. We certainly know colleagues out there. And then the other is those who have discovered lifestyle medicine and realize this is, I mean, they all got it. Everyone goes into medicine to help people.
Right.
Right. I don't know any doctor that didn't start out there, but like any job, you can get stuck in a tough spot. So it's so every lifestyle medicine doctor I meet, it is like I'm talking to a different profession. Yeah. They are truly excited about their work. They're excited to have the tools in their hands to help. And so it just, you can tell the excitement, right? It comes through immediately as soon as you get to talk about what you do.
Oh, yeah. And I think that I was on a webinar last night with, I'm sure you know, Dr. Ted Barnett, right? Veggie doctor and Veggie MD. So he runs Rochester Lifestyle Medicine in Rochester, New York. And so we did a webinar with some lifestyle medicine physicians for other medical professionals. And I said, I think, lifestyle medicine self-selects, right? Those of us who really we live this life ourselves. We see what these pillars of health do for our own bodies and our own well-being. And then we can disseminate that forward, right? And so I think that it truly is something that you practice what you preach, right? Like, this works for me, this works for my family. And I want you to, and we're not perfect, of course, but I think when we're living in ourselves and we see, that it works, we're just so behind it, and I tell my patients, like, I feel like I can't talk the talk if I don't do the walk, and, that I try to live these pillars myself to the best of my ability, and it's not perfect, and that's okay, right? And like you said, I finally feel like I have the tools, and the tools are evidence-based. This is not something that's, voodoo medicine. This is not something that's, costing them a lot of money, a lot of supplements, a lot of blood work. It's very practical. It's evidence-based. And so to have that knowledge to put forth and bring to my patients is just, it's just wonderful.
Yeah, I come at it from an engineering and business background, so I couldn't possibly come at it from a more pragmatic viewpoint. And and again, I'm driven by data. I make decisions based on data. Of course, I have emotions. I'm not a robot, but yeah, and I think we all, like, you look in physicians, there is always a desire to experiment on ourselves. And so I think I see lifestyle medicine physicians who are really kind of focusing on okay, I'll experiment with my diet a little bit more in this direction or another. And I'll see the traditional physician who will experiment with other pharmaceutical opportunities, right? So I mean, doctors are inherently interested in experimenting, interested in learning in different ways, but it's fairly clear now kind of where certainly where the opportunity is. And if you just look at lifestyle medicine doctors, you're going to see a certain type of person that is generally appealing. And as you say, they walk the walk. This isn't theory that they just picked up on the internet.
Right. And we're not doing it to make money, right? I'm not making money off of recommending broccoli. So, this is not about being incentivized by anything other than I just want you to have your best quality of life, and I'm doing you a disservice if I, in practically malpractice, if I don't talk to you about these 6 pillars that are so critical to your livelihood, right? And because medical school doesn't train us, like you said, in our training, we don't get this. To this date, I think the average is 17 hours of nutrition in medical school and residency. Most of that being, how to treat these very rare rickets and Kwashiorkors that, in 23 years of clinical practice, I've never seen, or memorizing the biochemical, you're a chemical engineer, right? So the Krebs cycle and all these biochemical things that I've never used in practice. I never was trained in really what nutrition is, other than what I would read in magazines or see on billboards, right? It was just kind of so I heard some doctors say, so I'd parrot that and repeat that. And so then really taking that deep dive and preparing for the lifestyle medicine board exam, there was a lot of preparation involved, right? And a lot of studying. And the more that you started learning, the more you keep learning. And I'm learning every day. I have my whole list of podcasts, including yours, that I listen to my colleagues every day, and I learn something new. And so just to have that quest for knowledge really has been so rewarding that I just want to continue to learn, because I still have a lot to learn.
Yeah, and I think we would say where we are today is we know a lot more in the last 5 and 10 years in particular. And while we certainly don't know it all, and I think a lot of energy gets spent on debating which diet is the right diet, in 5 or 10 years from now, we'll be really debating over the really fine points, because and I think most of that will come down to some individual care in terms of tailored
Well,
care.
look at even the gut microbiome, right? I mean, 12, 13 years ago, we really didn't even know what this was. And when I tell my patients about introduce the concept of the gut microbiome, I say it's like barely a teenager. Like it's like, so we're learning so much about it. And it's just, like, wow, this is incredible. It's kind of like, the first person who probably heard a heartbeat and was like, yeah, I think this kind of is an important thing in our body. And that's how I feel like the gut microbiome is. We're just learning more and more how it not just digestion, and there's what, 100 trillion organisms within that gut microbiome. So we have a lot to learn about that as well.
Yeah. As humans, we're along for the ride.
Yeah, exactly.
In reality, right? That's it's the world of bacteria and viruses, and we just happen to occupy some skeletal space,
right?
To give them some architecture to hang off of, but really not a lot more than that.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know lifestyle medicine, let's just kind of go there for a minute. And what's a visit like to come and see you or any lifestyle primary care physician? Relative to what people may be used to in their normal.
Sure. So first of all, I'll start with the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. And I actually tack on a 7th pillar too. So the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine that we follow, number 1, the emphasis on nutrition. And we do advocate for a plant-centric, whole food, plant-based diet. So that means no animal protein. And so when I say that at first to patients, they're kind of like deer in the headlights. So that means I can still have cheese and fish, so really trying to say, so when I say no animal protein, I mean, that includes milk, cow's milk, dairy, eggs, butter, chicken, pork, fish, red meat. So really trying to emphasize that. And then the second pillar would be the role of movement and some form of exercise. And again, this doesn't have to be going to the gym, doing a high intensity workout. Our recommendation is 150 minutes per week, which breaks down to 25 or 30 minutes per day. I encourage, I'm in internal medicine, so I do have some older patients. And so I, just going for a walk. And my favorite quote, and Scott, I like to run, but one of my favorite quotes is there's no such thing as bad weather, just inappropriate clothing. And I live in Michigan, so you need to have the appropriate clothing to get out there in the winter. But once you do, it's so invigorating. So there's maybe a black ice day would be one excuse not to go out, but really we can get outside. So just some movement. The third would be avoidance of risky behaviors. And that doesn't mean jumping out of planes or anything like that, or surfing the biggest surf wave in Hawaii. Risky behaviors we talk about are the use of tobacco, the use of drug use, or excessive alcohol. Another pillar is the importance of sleep and restorative sleep and sleep hygiene. And we're learning more and more about what happens when we sleep. And there's a wonderful book, Why We Sleep. I'm sure you've heard of that. And this whole concept of this glymphatic system, which is we pretty much all have heard of our lymph nodes and our lymphatic system that detoxifies us. But we now know there's a glymphatic system that while we're sleeping rids toxins from us, including the amyloid protein found in dementia, right? And you're a longevity expert. So really that is so important for us to get restorative sleep and, the hygiene that we can do to prepare for a good sleep. And we try to tell people to try to get at least 7 hours of sleep per night. Another pillar is management of stress. We all experience stress in our life. Some people have, just really tragic things happen, but we all carry stress. And it's how we deal with that? You know, do we hold on to that? Do we do self-care like deep breathing or mindfulness to really to manage that? So really trying to educate patients on how we can better manage our stress. And then the final pillar of lifestyle medicine from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine is the importance of social connection. And, you know, it's been a challenging year, you know, with the pandemic, right? Where we weren't supposed to connect at all. But we are social creatures, you know, we need our tribe, our sense of belonging, and how to cultivate that, and remembering that that's a primal need of ours. And then the seventh pillar that I add, which is not part of the original six pillars, is I'm a big believer in connection to nature and fresh air. And, you know, I encourage my patients, again, whatever time of year it is, just to get outside and breathing that fresh air and grounding yourself is really healing. And I think reminds us that we're, you know, we're one of many, and we belong in this universe. And listening to birds and looking at the change of seasons or the flowering trees. So I myself get outside each day, you know, no matter if it's just for a short little walk or what have you. I'm a big believer in that. So those are the pillars of lifestyle medicine, and that sort of shapes our practice. Now, that being said, I don't want people to think that that's like all I do is I don't give out medications or anything like that. My board certification is internal medicine, and I describe to my patients when they come in for a new patient, I said I'm double board certified. I'm board certified in internal medicine and lifestyle medicine. So what I tell my patients, I want to help optimize your health utilizing lifestyle medicine principles. Now, if we're optimizing your health and still you have an elevated blood pressure and you have a high cholesterol, you have a high blood sugar, we are going to treat you with medication. Now, you know, the old school thought is once we start these medications, they're lifelong. And I, you know, educate that it doesn't have to be lifelong. It may be, but it doesn't have to be. And we're going to work on optimizing those six pillars in your life, and we're going to see what we can do. So really, you know, going through the six pillars of lifestyle medicine with them, explaining to patients that these chronic diseases, it's actually a very small percentage that are actually inherited genetically, right? And probably at least 80% of our chronic diseases that we see, so diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, coronary artery disease, obesity, are lifestyle related. And, you know, if someone says, well, for sure I'm getting diabetes. I mean, my aunt, brother, sisters, uncle, cousin, you know, and then I say, oh yeah, well, so yeah, diseases run in family, but so do recipes and lifestyle, like your grandmother's lasagna. Yeah, that runs in family, or your grandfather's enchiladas, or your mother's chocolate sundae fudge brownies, right? So a lot of these things that just run in families, it's not just genes, right? It's our lifestyles. And if your family wasn't active, if your parents didn't exercise, and Saturdays are meant for going to the movies and the mall, which is nothing wrong with that, but you know, that's what you're grown up doing. And so really trying to shift that thought process that you have control of this, and I want to empower you to achieve your best health. And I think, Scott, you and I have talked about this video and Make Health Last that was produced. And it's a short video that I really like to show my patients, and particularly when they're of middle age and older, because I think that's when we start to realize, I know I'm in my 50s, that, you know, things that we took for granted, you know, are catching up with us. So it's this wonderful video that basically same actor, but a split screen. And it's about the last 10 years of life, what it could look like, right? What it could look like in illness and disease, or what it could look like in wellness and vitality, right? So it shows, you know, whether you're riding a bike or riding in a wheelchair, whether you're playing with your grandchild or someone is feeding you, whether you are adjusting your watch or whether you're adjusting your hospital band, whether you're pulling up your oxygen or whether you're getting your tie to go out to work, right? And it lasts 60 seconds. And when I show that video at that visit, people are either in tears, welled up, or are just like, oh my gosh, like that hits home, right? And every time I watch it, I get choked up still. I've seen it like hundreds of times. So again, it's putting that thought in their head of, I can be in control of this, right? And lifestyle medicine is different than conventional medicine in that I'm a doctor. I'm going to help disseminate information and resources to you. I'm going to help you. But ultimately, it has to be a partnership because you as a patient, you have to do this for yourself. I believe in you that you can do it for yourself, but you need to do this for yourself. And so I really like that it's not this dictatorship of take this medicine, do this test, this is what you're going to do. You'll come back and see me in a month and we're going to check your blood work and we're going to add more meds. And this way we're giving you tools, right? I believe in you. And so that's where, that nuance is. And so in the history taking in lifestyle medicine, and I will say within primary care and medicine, and you talked about some of the burnout and some of the struggles, we're time pressed, right? In a traditional primary care office, visits are either every 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Now, when we launch our consult service, we are going to be gifted with time. Our initial consults will be 60 minutes, our follow-up with 40 minutes. Now, fortunately, our coding system did change recently where we can bill by time, right? So we can actually be compensated for spending time with education because this does take a lot of education. And it's really finding out where our patients are. Because if I go into these 6 pillars, in depth, and you're going to change your diet and you're going to start exercising and you're going to sleep 7 hours, and they're going to go home and be like, I am never going back to that doctor again. Right. So
and I couldn't keep track after the third one. I just turned off. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really meeting patients where they're at and introducing these concepts. And, after that first visit, really what I'll find is what's one thing that we think that we can work on, right? And maybe we're going to work on something within nutrition, right? And if they are eating a standard American diet, even doing more of the good stuff. So even talking about, I want you to get more fiber in your diet. And I like to play this little it's not a joke, whatever, but I say, tell me what has more fiber. An egg, cheese, chicken, or beef. And they're like, egg? And I was like, actually, none of those have fiber in it. None. And, so again, how do people find out about this, And I mean, quite frankly, for a long time, even as a physician, I think years ago, I probably didn't know that either, so just educating that fiber is our prebiotic, is for our gut microbiome. And this is what we need. Our gut microbiome needs this for food, and so can you do more of the good stuff? Well, yeah, I do you like fruits and vegetables? Yeah. Could you try to do more of the good stuff and maybe crowd out the other stuff, and starting there, more of the good stuff. Or, if you're consuming cow's milk, dairy, could you switch to a plant-based milk? There's so many options, almond milk, soy milk, oat milk. Yeah, I could probably do that, right? So getting them to feel confident that they could make this change, right? Because if I throw everything at them and they're like, oh, doc, I gave up because it was too overwhelming, right? Now, there are some patients that want to go all in. They're like, wow, yeah, let's do this. And great, but other patients just, small, subtle changes of getting that fiber count up, 95% of Americans are not getting enough fiber in their diet, right? The average intake is about 15 grams. When really optimally, we probably need at least 30 grams, optimally 40, 45 grams of fiber.
Yep,
so
if there's one thing that you could start with, and if you didn't do anything else,
yes,
I can't think of a better place to start. It's
absolutely.
Fixer,
And it's very much also dispelling this protein, this not only myth, but how corporate America and marketing has done such a wonderful job of making the word protein associated with health, right? You could slap on a Pop-Tart thing, contains protein. You're like, oh, protein, Pop-Tarts, that means good for me. So, because I'll have like 80-year-old patients and they're like, well, I don't know if I'm getting enough protein in my diet. I need to get more protein. Should I do some protein shakes? I'm like, oh God, you're getting enough protein. I guarantee you are. Let's talk about fiber. So it's really like, I try to just say, like, I guarantee you're getting enough protein. And I do the math for them, right? I do the 0.8 grams per kilo. Oh, look I just took your weight. Let's do the math here. you need about, 45 grams of protein per day. Oh, really? I thought I needed a lot more. No, you don't. And if you're eating a balanced diet, you will get that enough protein. But let's talk about the fiber, right? So I agree. That's just um, those small changes can just improve that gut microbiome profile. So, I take a thorough history, try to touch on those pillars, see where they're doing an okay job, things where they could improve. Physical exam is going to be pretty much the same. And then as far as blood work, it's very important within lifestyle medicine that I think that patients can relate to objective changes more than just sometimes subjective. So we definitely get baseline metabolic profiles, which will show our cholesterol levels, our full cholesterol profile, including LDL, and then a fasting blood sugar. We'll get a hemoglobin A1C, which measures sort of long-term sugar control for screening for diabetes. Sometimes we might do a C-reactive protein that looks at overall inflammation in the body. And then of course, like body mass index, which is weight and height. So when we take those baseline and then we can start, transforming patients' life through the principles of lifestyle medicine, we can recheck those labs, right? And the weights and hopefully see a change, And for an example, I saw we're partnering with Ted Barnett in Rochester Lifestyle Medicine. They have a Jumpstart program. It's a 15-day Jumpstart program. They're running it virtually so we can enroll our patients into this. And I had 2 patients yesterday that both females in their 60s and have some underlying high blood pressure, borderline diabetes, and I encouraged them. They were interested in trying to go whole food plant-based, but just kind of felt overwhelmed. And I said, there's a wonderful program, 15 days, they're going to give you the tools and you're going to learn a lot. So we did labs on one of the patients, and within those 15 days, her LDL dropped by 11 points. Right? 15 days. The changes can be fast, and our A1C dropped as well. So it doesn't take months, years. We can see changes pretty quickly. And so when she saw those labs, she's like, wow, like, I can't believe it works that fast. And I'm like, it does. And so because of those numbers, we're able to keep her off cholesterol medicine. We're able to keep her off diabetic medicine. And what was really cute is they were put in this cohort. It was virtual, and turns out these 2 women found out they lived in the same city. And so one of them said, I know it's kind of HIPAA, but I want to get in touch with that other patient of yours so that we can, cook together and experiment together. And so you're really creating, this community of, wow, like we've discovered this thing and we're so excited about it. So, and that's what we're hoping to do. The more physicians that learn about this. And so that's why I talk to other physicians in my office who are not who are not board certified in lifestyle medicine. We do webinars to, other groups. We're going to do this consult service so that other physicians will say, you're onto something, right? And so then they want to learn more. And I know you've had Sarai Stanzik on, and, she's going after at the medical school level because I wasn't trained in this. And we need to shift that. And so getting our medical schools to start, from the roots, right? So we're training these young doctors who they'll already know this, right? They won't know anything else. Like I had to unlearn the stuff and then learn. And then to wrap up the visit, what I try to do, and it's really reading where my patients are, but I always I have a whole binder. I call it my Bible because if anyone took it, I'd be lost without it. But I have collected resources, and so I try to give them something to take home so that they're going to think about it, right? And I'm still kind of old school. I know everything is virtual, but I want them to have something they can reference. So I have a 5-page grocery list. It's whole food, plant-based, because I think a lot of times people think, so I can eat lettuce. Boy, that's not going to be very fun. And I'm like, no. I've got a 5-page grocery list for you. It's got fruits and vegetables and legumes and whole grains and condiments and refrigerated foods and frozen foods and herbs and spices. And they're like, wow, this is kind of a lot. This is great. And I said, go through with your family members or whoever you live with and maybe highlight what you're already doing and then highlight what you are willing to do. And anything on this list is a green light. So I usually give that grocery list. And then I send them home with, I have a resource list and I'll highlight what I want them to focus on. And I think some of the documentaries that have come out over the last couple of years are really powerful and can be eye-opening. And rather than having their doctor like, you should do this, I'm like, do you ever watch TV? And I don't think I've ever had a single person say, nope, I never sit on the couch to watch TV. They're like, and I'm like, how about Netflix? And then we had the pandemic where everyone binged Netflix, and they're like, yeah, my doctor's telling me to sit on the couch and watch TV. I can do that. So, Scott, you're familiar with Game Changers, and I think that's been a great one that came out, produced by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then the James Cameron from Titanic and Avatar. So it's really well done, and it really caters to even like macho men and athletes. And people think that, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is very strong and very muscle, and Serena Williams and all these people we look at as just being the epitome of health and strong. So it gives a lot of evidence and data, but also tells, personal stories of transformation. So I recommend that one. I think Forks Over Knives, that's the classic one. And just some amazing personal stories of people who've just, reversed their disease and just got their life back. And then What the Health and Cowspiracy, there's lots that are out there, right? So I highlight those and say, go home and do that. And if they, like books, I think one of the great books to read is How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. And I encourage them to listen to an audiobook, because I said it's full of information. Maybe get the audiobook and then the book so you can highlight. And he's a very entertaining, energetic guy, and he reads it himself. So, that's a place to start. And for myself, that was one of the very eye-opening books that I read, because I remember listening to it and just like, how did I not know this? How did I not know this?
Yeah,
so I really
absolutely jammed with data, right?
Oh my gosh. And then his, How Not to Diet is just the same way, where it's just the references there, and the quality of the data is amazing. So, I give them some books to read. And of course, the books by Neil Barnard and Caldwell Estlin. And I love Proteinaholic by Garth Davis. So just giving them that. And then I have a whole list of podcasts that I've created a smart phrase in our Epic EMR. So all I have to hit is podcasts, and they all get listed. And, I say that I try to listen to a podcast. I have a little bit of a commute to work, and I like to take a walk after work. And so I just pop my earphones in, and it's free and you can learn, and so I have my favorite podcasts that I give to them. And I said, I'm just learning something new every day, and it's inspiring, right? And wants you to improve your health because you're learning ways. So I think that's where, it's different from conventional medicine. And when I am seeing right now, I just switched practices and taking over for another physician who was not intro or was not lifestyle medicine. Excellent doctor, right? Excellent doctor. But when you look at these notes and how they approach the patient, there was really no mention of these pillars of lifestyle. There's really no mention of diet. It was, eat a healthy diet. What does that mean? Right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? And, God, and you need to move more. Well, what does that look like? Right. So I think it's really, now I feel like I have the knowledge to really educate and give something to my patients.
Yeah, I always, in class, when we start into nutrition, I always ask kind of people, how well do you eat, or individually, and almost, everyone parrots back, oh, I ate pretty well.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's probably what your patients say, because it's such an abstract thing. And in most cases, as we get older, we do tend to eat better, generally, as we learn more, certainly in recent years. And so it's better than it was last year and better than 10 years ago. But where that is on the health scale, it doesn't tell me anything. It probably doesn't tell you a lot. Well, and so by kind of giving them something to work with, I think is important. And I think you mentioned that shopping list. That's my help, and I would say that's what's really helped us is just surround yourself, and then suddenly it's easy and convenient. There's really nothing difficult other than changing and discovering there's this whole other pantry
Yeah.
things that you're not going to get food poisoning from. They're not going to go bad, in 7 days if you don't eat them right away. Like the
Yeah.
shelf life, like everything becomes far more forgiving in the process of this too. So yeah, there's somebody there. You touched on something else I could go back to for a second, because it's a place I really dial into. This is the engineer in me coming out.
Okay.
And that's really the power of data. I think there's a historical belief that my doctor was responsible for the data, and my doctor's going to tell me what I need to do. And I'm going to get the test done. The doctor's going to look at the data and tell me to take whatever. And I don't really, I'm get a copy out of courtesy, but I don't really know what those numbers are until suddenly it's really serious. And then okay, well, you got to get this down to whatever you're going to have a heart attack in 6 months. Then suddenly we go from this extreme of disinterest to life is now centered on getting my A1C down, right? Every month I got to work on it. So I think that's been getting challenged. And also I think it's challenged by how life operates today, right? We go out in our cars, we're surrounded by data in our cars. We get GPS that tells us how long it's going to take, not just how to get there, but exactly what time we're going to arrive, where each delay is, the data around kind of digital watches, the data in our refrigerator, the data in our microwave. This notion of we can't handle health data is ridiculous. Right. So as you looked and you went down the list, I'll just go back to touch on it because I think it bears repeating, right? Cholesterol numbers, like it doesn't take much to learn what our total cholesterol is. It doesn't take much to learn what our HDL is, our LDL, triglycerides, A1C. And I always really encourage physicians, CRP. You mentioned it there.
I agree.
Like I put that on what I would say is the critical list, and hopefully it comes back a really low number. And it's about the earliest indication of something going on.
Yes, absolutely.
It doesn't tell you what, but it tells you.
No, it's very sensitive. It's sensitive, not specific, right? But it is. There's inflammation going on someplace.
Yeah. So to that end, I put a dashboard for people to download. I'll put a link to it if they want to get it, and they can just have their own kind of start tracking their own data. And that's what you said, right? Am I in my lane? Yeah. And then as soon as I start to veer off, or I'm off when I start, and you're bringing them on, you realize, okay, this is good. Now I can see I'm actually making improvements, and that then becomes motivating for them. So let's talk about probably one of the big issue, and they really do overlap, maybe, and you can take us through that, is kind of with obesity. I think we all certainly hear about it, but I look at it as obesity is really an indicator of something else going on, right? And so maybe can you talk a little bit kind of on the fact that we really need to be thinking about, and maybe kind of how that interplays with type 2 diabetes, because you mentioned that earlier.
Right. So, when we talk about fat, and I think this probably is a little bit genetic of where people will, if they're overweight, where the fat is going to center. And so the classic one has been the apple shape versus the pear shape. And we have seen that, that the apple shape can be more dangerous, because that fat deposit, that's where our critical organs reside, right? Our liver, our heart, our pancreas, just our lungs, everything. And so when there's an increase in adipose tissue surrounding those organs, they're not going to work as well. And we do see, we call it metabolic syndrome, right? Where it's this cluster of disease states. So I was, going through patients, looking at my patients for next week and trying to familiarize, because they are new patients. And I'll see, someone with a body mass index of, within anything, body mass index 25 and above is 25 to 29 is considered overweight, and then over 30 is obese. So particularly with my patients who have a body mass index over 30%, I will likely see type 2 diabetes as a diagnosis and a medication. I will likely see hyperlipidemia as a diagnosis and a treatment, and blood pressure, right? So these tend to all cluster together. And so you think, they're all related, right? So that's when we talk about whole food, plant-based eating and the lifestyle pillars, there's not a different diet for diabetes and a different diet for coronary disease. and a different diet for obesity and a different diet for, high cholesterol, it cures them all, or helps improve them all, right? And so type 2 diabetes in particular, I think is really interesting. And this is where I do a lot of education with my patients, because when I was trained, first and foremost, type 2 diabetes was thought to not be reversible. And then also I was always, and it was probably a board question of mine, like what's, more hereditary, type 1 or type 2? And it was always type 2 is more hereditary. Well, now I know that's because, again, that quote of lifestyles, running your family and recipes, that's why it's hereditary, right? And so I'll tell a funny side story. So when I came over to IHA, it was actually in 2019, I was working for a Trinity health organization, which is a large health organization. And as my group, IHA, started to grow, they took over a lot of the Trinity physicians. So they said, you still have to interview with IHA. And I was like, well, that's kind of stupid, but okay, fine, I'll go to the interview. And so I already had the job, right? So this is gonna be a formality, and I didn't pay attention to who was gonna interview me. And so I go to this interview, and it ends up being Dr. Bob Brakey, who at that time was head of family medicine, and he's head of lifestyle medicine. But I didn't know that, right? I was just like, some guy's interviewing me. And he looks through my CV, and then he leans in real close to me and he says, Dr. Sundermann, do you believe that type 2 diabetes is reversible? And so as I'm sitting there thinking, well, okay, I already have this job. So like, should I answer how I think I'm supposed to answer? Like how I was taught in med school, or should I just say what I really feel? And I was like, well, heck, they have to hire me, so I'm just going to go with what I feel. So I was like, absolutely, it's reversible. Like, these are the pillars of, what I believe in health and wellness. And so after the interview, Bob Brakey says, I've been interviewing every single physician we've hired for primary care for the last 25 years. You're the only one who got it right. So, so when I was trained, and what I would educate patients about type 2 diabetes back in the day was, you can't have any sugar, right? You can't, and if you do, we're going to have to like boost up your insulin and carbs. Boy, ooh, don't you dare touch a potato. My God, it's like the devil, right? And we're really just gonna get everything sugar free. I don't care if it's aspartame, just you'll do sugar free, and that's how we treat diabetes. And yeah, we're gonna start you on glucophage to start, and then we might add something like lipizide. And then you're probably ended up with insulin, and sorry, you're probably going to be on it. That's just what it is. I'm sorry. And make sure you get your eyes checked and your feet checked every year. So fast forward to where we are now, right? And me getting a lot more training in nutrition and the underpinnings of type 2 diabetes and how our thinking has shifted. And what we now know is it's really about the saturated fat in our diet, and what we talked about with that visceral fat. When your liver is gunked up, your intramyocellular deposits in our skeletal muscle and our liver, that insulin cannot work. We get resistant, right? So, I explain it to my patients, like when you're, and I really try to like simplify it and make it kind of graphic, is, you've got your liver, and its job is to, that insulin is that signal that it comes out from the pancreas and it says, hey, liver, there's glucose out here. It's, hey, open those doors. It's coming, get that glucose out of the bloodstream. And what happens when we have a diet high in saturated fat is that liver, those doors just get gunked with the fat deposits. And so again, the pancreas is like, okay, insulin, go out there, do your job. And so insulin is like, knock, 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 liver, open those doors. And the liver's like, I'm stuck, I cannot. So the glucose just sits in the bloodstream, and then we have type 2 diabetes. So what I've seen in my patients is once we start reducing that saturated fat in the diet, and hey, the best way to do that is going to a plant-centric diet, right? The amount of saturated fat in our plant-based diets, right? I mean, it's minimal. And so the power to reverse diabetes is so powerful. So that twice, but with going to a whole food plant-based. And I've learned a lot, and I'm sure you know about the Mastering Diabetes, Robbie and Cyrus, who run masteringdiabetes.org, and they both have diabetes. And they advocate for a whole food plant-based diet where you can have fruit, right? A lot of diabetics were told, nope, 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 sorry. You can have orange
Right.
juice when your blood sugar goes down, but other than that, you stay away from those fruits and potatoes, so they're all about eat your fruits, eat your vegetables. And this is how we can control your diabetes. So it's really been a paradigm shift. And so really trying to educate my patients. And I have a great handout that goes through type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, explaining that role of saturated fat in the diet. And as we reduce our body fat and our weight, that we will not only see improvements in our A1Cs, but we're probably going to see improvements in our blood pressure, in our cholesterol, in our waist circumference, in our body mass index, right? And then Dean Ornish and Caldwell Estlin so beautifully showed the reversal of coronary artery disease with their whole food plant-based diet, along with other pillars of lifestyle medicine.
Yeah, it's and generally most physicians will tell you, if they know both sides, it will tell you that you can do far more with food and lifestyle factors than you can ever do with medication, right? So,
Yeah.
so you can take, for example, LDL, and you can knock your LDL down a lot with statin. It doesn't necessarily change your health outlook at all. Right?
Yeah.
That's an example of you've changed a number, but that's
Right.
really not what it's about.
Right.
That's an indication of something, but LDL in and of itself is just it's an indirect measure anyway, and even that is an example of something that's under lots of discussion in different groups today. But yeah, but the point is, you have all these markers, and you don't get tied up on one. It's like saying, stand on the scale and say, well, that's all I need to know. What do I weigh?
Yeah.
Right? There's more to health than that. We start to get 3 and 4 things lining up. We got a 5th one that's out here, but now, well, we understand why that one's there, right? Because you are, so we could look at you, for example, and say, well, you're not average because you seem to be more active than most people. And so let's kind of go there, because I didn't want to start on this because it probably would be far too intimidating for people.
I doubt that.
So when you say you walk the walk, you don't do that much walking. You do a lot more running than walking. Right. So you know a little bit about Boston and what that usually involves in the spring. It won't be the spring this year. You're going to go in the fall.
Right.
You've had a few trips to Boston.
I have. So this is going to be my 10th Boston Marathon. And the special thing about it was my first Boston Marathon was 25 years ago. I was in my 2nd year of medical school, and it was the 100th anniversary of the Boston Marathon. And I was born.
And I don't know how anyone in medical school has time to train for a marathon.
Well,
amongst
I trained.
Else,
the funny thing is, so.
And that's before the days you couldn't have earpods on and train while you were running. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I was born outside of Boston and Worcester. And so my family's from there, and a lot of them are still out there. So this is going to be this great thing. If I qualified, everyone was going to come out. So I worked hard to qualify, because as you know, Scott, you have to meet a qualifying standard. And at that time, I was 25 years ago, I was pretty young. So I had to run relatively fast to qualify. So I trained hard to do that. Well, then once I qualified, I got 2nd year of medical school is when you take your first set of boards, and it's a grueling time. And so I said, well, okay, I just want to run this thing, right? I just got to run it, but I got to study for my boards. And so that became pretty evident as I ran it and started cramping up, about mile 15, and marathon is 26.2 miles. But, I did finish it because I had already purchased the hat and the shirt and the poster. And I'm like, in order to wear these things, I got to finish it. So, so within that time, I've did 9 more marathons. I have 2 kids. They're now in college, but obviously during those busy times of life of having kids and young kids, and them getting really involved in their sports, they became a priority. And I've always run, and I've always been active, but traveling to races. So now the kids are off of college, and it's, time for me to really absorb myself in my career and get back to what I love to do. So yeah, so heading back out to Boston, it was canceled. It's always on Patriots Day, which is usually the 2nd or 3rd Monday of April. The whole city of Boston has the day off. So it's a big party for everyone except for the runners until they pass that finish line. But so it got canceled this April, so it's going to be in fall. So it hopefully will be a beautiful time in New England with changing trees, and run her from Hopkinton and run into Boston. And yeah, not bad. You know, I'm 51, so I'm a lot slower than I used to be. That's okay. You know, I just always joke that I always have my Garmin on, and the Garmin is not working quite as well because it feels like I'm still running a 7-minute mile, but it's saying 9 minutes. I don't get it. So I tend to not to look at my pace anymore. I just get out there and run because I can.
Yeah, there are a few things when you feel good running, you know, that we talk about that runner's high, when they kind of
Yeah.
you feel good and it gets easy. And yeah, and the experience of celebrating life, you know, feeling good, and the support you get in any marathon, but particularly the Boston experience. Mine was coming from the north, was undertrained. You know, that's always the challenge with Boston in the spring, but yeah, a unique event. And you also have some Ironmans on your
I
on
do.
your list as
So
well.
for some people who are not familiar with an Ironman triathlon, so it's sort of the granddaddy of triathlons. And so you start off with a 2.4-mile swim, usually in open body water, either a lake or a river, or an ocean. And then follow that with get on your bike and then bike 112 miles. And then get rid of the bike, which you're ready to do by that time, only to run a full marathon of 26.2 miles, right? So the big joke with Ironman triathletes is like, to those marathoners, yeah, the marathon, that's the end of our race, right? So I completed 3 full Ironmans, and it was quite an accomplishment, and I'm proud of that. And it took quite a bit of training to do that. At that time, I was working not quite full time, so I had a little bit more time to train because my kids were younger, right? So now I'm back to full time, and maybe I'll do another Ironman. There's a season for everything, right? So I kind of just wanted to. I grew up as a ballet dancer, right? So I didn't do these really athletic things other than I was on a swim team and stuff like that. But really, I was a ballet dancer, and so when I started taking up running, I said to my parents, why didn't you have me run? Like I kind of like am better at this than ballet. And they're like, well, probably if we put you in running, you would have burnt out of that and you would have been doing ballet in your later life. So so the triathlons were great. I also mountain bike. So I've done here in Michigan, it's called the Lumberjack. So it was a 100-mile single track bike race. I've done that, and I've gotten into ultra running events. And that's where I think I'm going to land now, because it's really laid back. Everyone shows up, and when you've been to the Boston Marathon Expo, and everyone's walking around, everyone kind of looks the same. They're drinking their hydrated water, or their electrolyte water, and very fastidious. And you go to an ultra and like, yeah, whatever, like maybe drinking a beer. So the ultras, I've done some 50Ks and really enjoying that. And they're on trails, and I think that's kind of where my body and my mind are going to end up doing more ultras.
Yeah, and I remember one of the programs I was working with at the university, doing as part of some study, and I remember one of the researchers saying, eventually, if you keep trying things, you'll find your way to where you belong at wherever you point or wherever you are in life. And so I took away from that as the main thing is just try different things, right?
Yeah.
And I think as we look at opportunities to move, while you and I may enjoy endurance sports, that doesn't mean that's the right sport for others. It just happens to be a place where we find that our bodies like it, our minds like it. I would say it's a particular Ironmans for me was part of really getting my mind set up to really focus on longevity, and really understand what does the aging cycle look like in when things don't go to plan, because you cannot plan a whole Ironman. You can train all you want, but there's no way you can predict all the things that are going to happen over the course of that day,
right?
Because there's so many things going on around you. And so, yeah, it's there's lots to learn, and so that's what I try to do as well, is how do I bring those learnings back in the education space and try to put it in a context of ways that people can understand that really do apply in life. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to that point, I think with these endurance sports, and you may have been at this space too, but I think when I've been in doing a race or an event, there's always a point that I want to quit, you know? And I have this dialogue with myself that says, well, the kids will still love me if I quit. They will, and my family will still love me. I mean, they'll still be proud of me. It's okay if I quit. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. A DNF, it's, and somehow you find that inner voice and that inner strength to say, just keep one more step, just make it to the next aid station,
Yep.
or
Yep.
make it to this next. And so you really learn about your own strength, right? And to dig deep and to say, it really doesn't feel great right now. And I think you can apply that to a lot of aspects of life of, I'm feeling really stressed and down right now. But you know what? You're going to move through that, right? It's just like mile, 23 sucked. But hey, mile 24, I got an orange slice and I kind of perked up and it wasn't so bad, right? So I think that you learn those life lessons of you're not stuck in this moment or stuck in this mile, and things will change, and having that belief that it will, and I'm not going to give up on myself or give up, right now.
Yeah, and I think I'll go back and maybe close out with one other comment, which you mentioned really early on as one of the pillars, and I certainly know it relates for me, is sleep is part of training.
Yes.
And why people deal with stress or have trouble dealing with stress, to think it's not related to sleep is probably a big mistake. The two are intimately connected. The better our sleep is and the quantity, we're not going to get good quality sleep in 4 hours. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
But it also helps us to manage our stress through the day, which helps to manage all sorts of health aspects. So it's well, Melissa, this has been wonderful. I knew we were going to have a great conversation today. I'm so respectful and appreciative for all of the work that you do beyond your patients. Your patients are incredibly lucky. Hopefully, someone will get to hear this and get some of your mind time through a different lens as well. But it's just I think the work that you and others are doing out on the front lines. I know we made a big deal through the pandemic about those on the front lines, but before and after, it's people like you who are really, really making the big difference. And life, I believe, is going to look a lot different certainly on the primary care front 10 years down the road. And it really has started with the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Well, I'm not going to stop until, patients will come and see me. They're like, are you retiring anytime soon? I said, no way. Are you kidding me? I'm just starting. I'm just getting started with this. So, one of the best gifts about lifestyle medicine is connecting to people like you, right? And I found that this community, my gosh, it's so collegial. And I think we all want to help each other in any way we can, because we want this to come to fruition, right? It's such a teamwork. And, some of those people that I went to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and I saw speak, right? Now I'm friends with, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just spoke with, Sarai Stanzik or whoever it is, right? Who I like, it's just like a little me. And I'm like, and they talk to me. So it's a great feeling of, I've been in other medical conferences and there's this hierarchy and egos involved. And I've just found with lifestyle medicine, it's not like that. It just really has been a gift. And I'm so glad that we've connected and, consider you my friend and colleague, and we'll make changes.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely right. And I think as physicians as well, in particular, like you feel part of a team more so than you do, I think, in traditional practice. So and I think that comes through with the message that we get out there to patients, that this is different, and it's different for the right reasons, not because somebody's trying to sell something that you don't need, right? This is the thing that you do need, that it's just try it once and you will discover a very different and appealing reality once you take a couple of steps down the road. So, well, thank you, Melissa, again. Wonderful talking to you today, and look forward to what we're going to do next down the road.
I agree.
There's a lot of work to do.
Exactly. Thanks so much for having me today, Scott. Take care.
Terrific. Thanks. Bye-bye.